This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guest today is Trevor Owens. Trevor is the managing partner at the Stacks Accelerator, and Stacks, of course, is helping to enable DeFi, NFTs, in the wonderful world of Web3, but on Bitcoin. Very cool stuff. Welcome to the show, Trevor.
Thanks so much, Andy. Happy to be here.
All right. So just before we get into Stacks and the wonderful world of Web3, let's learn a little bit about yourself, Trevor. Would love it if you could just introduce yourself. Let's hear a little bit about your background and leading up to you joining Stacks.
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur for more than a decade. Started a company called Lean Startup Machine, which was the first training program on lean startup methodologies. I worked with the author of the original book, Eric Ries, and grew that training program around the world, raised venture capital, launched multiple different software SaaS products over the last decade, and started advising and investing in startups. A notable startup I advised is the original founders of Stacks. So back in 2013, I was one of the first advisors to the founders. Helped them with fundraising and their initial Y Combinator application. I'm currently based in Seoul, South Korea. I lived in China for a while, did business all around the world. Also the author of the book, The Lean Enterprise, which is about applying lean startup in enterprises. And so I've just been, investing, advising, and starting companies for a while now. And when I saw what was happening at the beginning of this year with NFTs and DeFi, I thought that we had reached a watershed moment in the adoption of blockchain technologies. And so I reached out to the founders of Stacks, checked in with them, see what they were doing in terms of growing the ecosystem. They actually had just launched Stacks at the beginning of this year, at the end of January. Stacks 2.0 launched. So it was, it hasn't even been a year since the new blockchain has been live. Previously, they were actually building out decentralized storage and decentralized identity. There was no smart contract platform until this year. And they pulled me in the loop and wanted me to run the Accelerator Fund. So here I am today. We've invested in about 25 companies so far, kicked off in April. We plan to invest in another 75 over the next 2 years. So a total of 100 companies. We are technically we are like an evergreen fund. So the way our fund works is that 80% of the funds, they come from, the funds from our LPs, which include multiple different entities in the Stacks ecosystem. 80% of those funds go back into the fund to make more investments. So we have like a 15-year time horizon for our fund. So hopefully, as we expect, it won't just be 100, but multiple hundreds over the next decade or so.
Very cool, Trevor. And I mean, so funnily enough, I've had Manib on the show, and also Brittany Lachlan has been on the show. But this is probably, I think Brittany would have been on over 2 years ago, and Manib probably 18 months or so. And this was when Stacks was still called Blockstack. And slightly different than it is now. But so now I understand, I don't know if you would describe it as a pivot, but it's Stacks 2.0. And I know Manib was talking about this 18 months ago. But I think it's been quite interesting to see Blockstack, I suppose, evolve from this kind of decentralized identity solution and primitive for Web3, and it's still that, but now it's really about leveraging the incredible power and decentralization of the original bad boy of blockchain, which of course is Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people don't realize how new Stacks is, and people are like, they always ask like, oh, I didn't know that was possible, or I didn't hear, but why didn't I hear about this already? And it's like, well, it's brand new,
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. What's the pathway been for you in terms of, so did you say that you were advising presumably Manib right at the beginning? So you've kind of been along for this whole ride?
Yep, Manib and the other co-founder, Ryan Shea,
yep.
Back in 2013, they were just getting started and they were working on a couple different ideas. So I think when I first When I first talked to them about the business they work on, they initially had some ideas around medical health records. Then we started building a marketing tool, and then they both just got totally consumed and obsessed with Bitcoin. And I remember, back in 2013, actually, that was when I first started buying Bitcoin because of the two of them, after having multiple conversations with them about the technology. And they were just on a whole other level in terms of their understanding of Bitcoin. They had read the source code, analyzed the white paper, and were just like living and breathing the technology every day. And so they used to work out of my office. I rented them a couple desks before they were getting started. And then, they started raising money in the New York City startup scene. I advised them on just the fundraising process and helped with their YC application. But by and large, I really didn't do that much. I mean, they're just really incredible. I was just kind of there at the beginning and lucky enough to know the two of them.
Yeah, and obviously, Manib and Ryan, who I know less about, but these guys they're reasonably serious computer science guys, right?
Yep, both Princeton guys, computer science. Manib completed his PhD in decentralized systems, so they are a top caliber team. But I've advised a lot of teams and founders who come from Ivy League schools or top caliber backgrounds, and they're still like a level above a lot of those guys, because it's not just about how smart you are in the startup game. It really comes down to your intellectual humility. I think that self-awareness when it comes to startups, like there's a lot of people out there who are very high IQ, very good problem solvers, but what they lack is that self-awareness to make good decisions when their ego or other emotions come into conflict with what they're trying to achieve. And what I've seen about the two of them over the years is that they've been I've been very impressed with the decisions that they made and how they've always gone for the right decision despite where someone else might have taken the other path. And it's not anything to do with intelligence, but more about self-awareness and humility.
Absolutely. And I think like if we have time, maybe towards the end of the show, Trevor, we'll circle back to the lean startup stuff and be fascinating to maybe get some of your perspectives on where all that thinking is at, and also how it relates to crypto. But really, I think before we do that, we should dig into Bitcoin, right, and how it relates to Stacks, because as you'll be only too well aware, let's say perhaps 2020 was maybe the year of DeFi. 2021 has been the year of NFTs. And now as we begin to close out the year, it kind of feels like, maybe 2022 is maybe not the year of the metaverse or Web3, but man, it is a buzzword at the moment and everyone is obviously talking about it. And there's this perception, rightly or wrongly, both in crypto and outside of crypto, that Bitcoin doesn't have much of a role to play in terms of DeFi, NFTs, or Web3. There's one perspective is that Bitcoin is simply digital gold or a store of value, but it can't really do a lot more than that. Whereas all these other fast evolving smart contract platforms, that's where the action is at. So if that is the context, I'd love you to kind of start to explain what Stacks is and how it relates to helping Bitcoin play in this amazing Web3 space.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think a lot of people are just sleeping on the opportunity in front of us, because for me, when I was really reading up on Stacks too and educating myself as much as possible, I also have a background as a developer. So I've been since like 2015, end of 2014. I actually I coded in high school and things like that, but my professional background is in finance and business and entrepreneurship. But then with my last company, I found not being able to build, web apps and products, a huge limiting factor in what I could do as an entrepreneur. So in 2015, I went very, very heavy deep into coding, probably did about 10,000 hours over the last, 6 years. in coding. And so when I came to Stacks 2.0, I'm looking at it from that perspective as a developer and entrepreneur. What's the value of this, and why would I use this over Ethereum or Solana or any other platform? And I think what it comes down to is that there's this massive user base of Bitcoiners, and there's this massive capital base as well, that's completely untapped. And in my opinion, looking at all the different platforms out there that can provide smart contracts for Bitcoin, Stacks is just a country mile ahead of everything else in terms of the flexibility that it gives you as a developer and the functionality that it gives you as a developer, and the community, the ecosystem, the support. And so I think that in the future, where we're moving with blockchain is towards a multi-chain universe. However, I don't think it's going to be as multi-chain as many people think. I think that there will be specialization in terms of certain blockchains will be ideal for certain use cases. For example, Solana with being like the fastest, the highest throughput, but the least decentralized, and literally as little decentralized as you can humanly possibly be, while still considering yourself a blockchain, but really dialing up that performance to the maximum level. There's going to be some use cases that's ideal for. Will it be for the majority of use cases? Maybe not. For Ethereum, that will be the community that will be, probably continue to be slightly more leading edge than any other chain, where a lot of experimentation is happening. But then when it comes to Stacks and Bitcoin, well, Stacks is going to be the leader in putting their flag here to be, we're going to be the best for building smart contracts with this user base and with this capital base on Bitcoin. And Stacks has struck a really good balance, I feel, between decentralization and scalability and performance, because the fact that Bitcoin is 1 megabyte per block and 10 minutes per block time, it makes sense to move all of that expensive computation with smart contracts off of Bitcoin onto a second layer. And Stacks is able to use Bitcoin as a settlement layer, where every single smart contract on Stacks is hashed and put on Bitcoin. And so what that does functionally is that allows Bitcoin to record the history of the Stacks network, which gives Stacks certain additional security properties that you wouldn't get if you were just a layer one without a settlement layer like Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin is recording the history of Stacks. That means that the nodes on Stacks can easily see if someone tries to, let's say, fork the Stacks network. The hash on Bitcoin wouldn't match the data in the previous block on Stacks. And so in order to actually perform an attack on Stacks and fork the network and get away with it so that no one can see the heist that you performed, you would have to also fork the Bitcoin network, which is nearly impossible and relative to all of the blockchains, the most difficult network to fork or do any type of attack on. And so Stacks inheriting that additional security, and then through the same proof of transfer mechanism, Stacks can actually be scalable out of the box. So you can put layers on top of Stacks as well through something called app chains. What is possible is to have literally millions of smart contracts represented in a single hash on Bitcoin. And that makes Bitcoin a lot more valuable because it makes the block space on Bitcoin a lot more valuable. And it also, gives more functionality to the users of Bitcoin. And it means that the environmental impact of Bitcoin is much smaller relative to the value being provided, right? We're getting for each byte on Bitcoin, the value being provided is much greater. And that's making it, more of when we look at the environmental trade-off of Bitcoin, that actually strengthens the case for Bitcoin, because Stacks actually doesn't require any additional environmental burden, where, for Stacks, the way it works, the consensus mechanism is called proof of transfer. And the way it works is people transfer Bitcoin from main chain to other Bitcoin holders who are actually stackers. So every Stacks address, you can derive a Bitcoin address from it. And so by mining, so they're just sending Bitcoin transactions. We're not using any type of expensive hardware. However, it's not a proof of stake system. It's still meritocratic in the same way, and open participation in the same way proof of work is, because anyone can spend Bitcoin in order to mine a block of stacks. And that's why a lot of people call proof of transfer like a recycled proof of work.
Yeah, well, maybe because maybe a useful way of diving into proof of transfer, Trevor, is just what do you see? So we've got, if Bitcoin is proof of work and Ethereum is moving to proof of stake, and all of the new generation smart contract chains today, most of them are variations of proof of stake, right? So what do you see as the limitations or flaws in proof of stake, if you like, and then how is it correct to say that proof of transfer, one way of viewing it, is kind of the best of both? It has the advantages of proof of stake with all the advantages of proof of work as well.
Yeah, so I mean, that's how I think about it, but let me back up and explain. So,
Sure.
With proof of work, what we have is, extreme decentralization, but a lack of scalability, because people are running these, this hardware and consuming a lot of electricity. And the whole idea of proof of stake was, hey, let's get rid of this heavy computation electricity to make a more scalable network and a more energy efficient network. And so they said, so in order to do that, you have to get rid of essentially the puzzle solving that these hardware, that the ASICs and hardware, mining hardware, is doing. And so then you come up with the question, well, how do we decide who wins the block or who writes to the block, right? And so the solution they came up with was, hey, we'll just look at whoever the biggest token holders are instead, and we'll, instead of being like a lottery ticket, we will allow the people with the most tokens the ability to choose the node who writes to the next block. And so, fundamentally, there's some big differences in the consensus mechanism in terms of even how meritocratic it is. So with proof of stake, as we said, anybody can add hardware to proof of work. Anyone can participate in mining. If someone like a state power tries to add a lot of hardware and attack the network, perform a 51% attack, then someone can easily respond and bind to the network. With proof of stake, it's whoever has the most tokens has the most say and decision-making power. And so there's no, opportunity for someone just to buy in without buying from somebody else. So someone actually acquiring or controlling 51% of the supply, and I think it's actually much less, it might be even a third of the supply, which, by the way, if you look at just some of the biggest exchanges combined, they already meet that criteria. It's kind of an end game scenario for the network without slashing, right? And so it makes it much harder to defend an attack. And I just think that philosophically, it's not really what we're going for in a decentralized world, to say, hey, the people who have the most tokens are making the decisions. And a lot of people say, some of the Ethereum people say, well, proof of stake is more expensive to attack than Bitcoin, because if you take the cost of what it would take to produce 51% of the hash power versus the cost of what it would take to acquire, enough of the stake of Ethereum, well, the stake of Ethereum is much larger. And I think that's a very narrow-minded, naive conclusion, because you actually don't need to acquire any Ethereum to take over the network. All you have to do is blackmail, abduct, or control some of the biggest wallet holders in order to impact the network, or just be one of the leaders of one of these exchanges and collude with another leader of an exchange. And so it'd be much harder to attack Bitcoin. It'd be much harder to take over a mining farm. If I have a mining farm in Texas, it'd be much harder for a foreign state power to fly in there and take it over. And so it comes down to, with proof of stake, more scalability. It's much more scalable than proof of work. However, you're sacrificing, that what I consider, philosophically, the right answer for a future decentralized world and potentially a lot of security. But with Stacks, we have a very similar consensus mechanism to the Nakamoto consensus mechanism, very similar consensus to proof of work. Anyone can bind to the network. You don't have to acquire stacks from anybody else. It's an external resource. It's Bitcoin being spent to mine the blocks, just like on Bitcoin, it's electricity being spent to mine Bitcoin. And then since there's no additional, puzzle solving, it's just mainly software and reading the transactions, it can be highly scalable, like proof of stake.
Yep. Makes sense then, Trevor. So it makes sense, but maybe that's, if we understand a little bit about the technicalities, then let's look at some of the real world examples, right? That people can understand, products and services, NFTs, DeFi, stuff that is coming to Bitcoin thanks to Stacks. So, I mean, I can think of a couple of quite cool examples that I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah, I mean, up to you where we start. What's happening?
Yeah, there's a ton. So let me just pull up if people want to see some of the companies that we're investing in, for example, in Stacks Accelerator, you can go to our website, which is stacks.ac, and then you can go to /teams. We have a list of our startups. We also have the videos from our recent demo day on YouTube. We had like over 320 investors and individuals at our live demo day on Zoom simultaneously. But we're investing all over the place. So, we're investing a lot in DeFi. I'll give you a list of some of the cool companies. We have Arcadico, which is a algorithmic stable coin that you lock up your stacks as a collateral, and then they give you, a stable coin in exchange. And then the collateral actually pays itself off through stacking. So one of the coolest things about Stacks is through this proof of transfer mechanism, we have a DeFi primitive called stacking. You can think of it like staking, but it's called stacking for a reason, because it's different. And it allows you to earn, more 5 to 10% yield per year on your stacks holdings. And so with Arcadico, you just lock up your stacks in a smart contract. They give you a stable coin called USDA. And then those stacks that you locked up will actually pay themselves off in 3 years, because, you need to basically pay back the stable coin in order to get back your stacks. And using proof of transfer and stacking, the stacks will be stacked in the smart contract and it'll pay itself off. And that's it's the first stable coin that generates a yield in Bitcoin. And so we also have Alex, which is you can think of like Compound, but for Bitcoin. They actually allow you to get fixed interest rate loans. An amazing team behind that project. We have a lot of fintech. So we have Bransfer, which is an easy way to pay with Bitcoin from your Coinbase account or centralized exchange account. GoSats, which is a company that allows you to earn Bitcoin cashback rewards. We have StackSwap, which is a DEX on Stacks. We have Sustainable Bitcoin Standard, which is actually something I'm really excited about, which is creating a carbon credit system for Bitcoin mining. And so for Bitcoin miners who are using renewable energy or green mining, they will actually create a one-to-one sustainable Bitcoin token that then large companies can buy in order to offset when a company wants to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. The biggest concern right now is ESG requirements. They're worried about the environmental impact of Bitcoin. And so this allows them to provably offset their carbon footprint when they're buying Bitcoin by also buying a certain proportion of sustainable Bitcoin tokens. And so it allows Bitcoin to become measurably and quantifiably green for us actually to know, by what they're doing with certifying green miners and issuing their sustainable Bitcoin tokens, we can actually measure and track and then improve the rate at which Bitcoin is becoming, carbon neutral.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So there's obviously a lot happening already, and also NFTs on Bitcoin. So I know Manib, he wrote it was just a really basic, concise, I guess, as a blog post, but I think it was called something like, can't remember what it was called, but it was kind of about uh, iconic moments in Bitcoin history, and then he kind of relayed that to some um, new NFT projects that were building effectively on Bitcoin through Stacks, and one of the really cool ones is Crashpunks, right? And so I've been following Crashpunks on Twitter, and I'm in the Discord, and yeah, it looks like this could be one of the first NFT collections on Bitcoin to kind of break through and get some serious attention. What do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I'm really happy to hear that. So, Crashpunks is actually a project created by Grace Ng, who is actually my business partner for many years. We co-founded Lean Startup Machine together, and
Oh,
she's a
really?
venture. Yeah,
Cool.
and she's an amazing artist. Actually, I mean, she's a really talented, like multidisciplinary artist. I say like the best founders are actually T-shaped, so meaning that they have a very wide, applicable, broad skill set, but then they're an absolute expert in one thing. And so, Grace is one of those really broadly skilled people who's also like a genius when it comes to the creative aspect of things. And we started talking. Actually, her goal from when we started the accelerator was to become an NFT artist and to get her art into the crypto world, because she previously actually has done some really incredible art projects in terms of working with like VR and augmented reality. She did a project that was exhibited at the top of the Shanghai Tower, which is like the second tallest building in the world, and at Stanford and MIT and Beijing Fashion Week and all these places, where it was like I'm not sure if you've heard of Emotive, but it's like a headset that can read. It's like a budget EEG, kind of consumer grade level EEG, that can measure
Yep.
some
Okay.
brain signals or brain waves when you put the headset on. And so she made an art project that allowed you to basically paint with using what was it called? There's this input device for computers where you can like wave your hand, and it's like I forget what it's called, but anyway, it's kind of like a combination of like, you can think of like Xbox Connect with the emotive headset. So you can make a painting based on your brain state, and you could like calm yourself down, and the painting would change. And that was quite popular. And then she wanted to go into NFTs, and so I was brainstorming with her about, hey, what would be really cool that could contribute to the Stacks ecosystem, to the Bitcoin ecosystem? What is something that people could really relate to and be like a cultural identity for the Bitcoin community? And I think, looking at, we're both fans of sci-fi, and looking at the impact that Neil Stephenson and Snow Crash has had on many different cypherpunks, we felt like that was going to be a really cool story and novel to take inspiration from for creating an NFT collection. And so Crashpunks is a collection inspired by Snow Crash and sci-fi and anime culture and Bitcoin. And it takes together all those elements to create a generative art project that's can be used as a profile picture. It can be used as a vote in the community DAO. It can be used as a membership. And we're also thinking of other utilities, puzzles, community events, and ways to take it beyond that, to create something that can be like the first of its kind on Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely, Trevor. And one of my good friends, his name is Eli Herf. So shout out to Eli. I think he's a mod in the Crashpunks Discord. But I was talking to him about it the other day, and we both just agreed that what I love about Crashpunks, and you just said it, it combines Bitcoin, NFTs, and Snow Crash. So it's, could not be more relevant to my interests, as people like to say. So I might even, well, I'd be happy to invite Grace on the show, and we'll do just a fully dedicated Crashpunks episode. I'd quite like to do that, just because it's an excuse to just geek out about Snow Crash and NFTs on Bitcoin, even though you and I are doing this here and now, Trevor. But it'd be cool to go to the source, if you like, with Grace as well. But just while we're talking about this, you can tell I'm excited. Maybe just anything you can hint, or tell people where they can go to find out more about Crashpunks and join the Discord. And what's I believe there is a mint date. It's coming up. I'm not sure if it's actually set in stone, but people have to know that, don't worry, there's still time if they want to own one of these Crashpunks NFTs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're targeting first week of December. However, we're trying to coincide it with the upcoming upgrade to the Stacks network, which is going to, make the network basically increase the capacity by 10x, is what Manib has said. So we're trying to coincide with that. We're looking at the first week of December. There are a couple of details up in the air because we have a really big partnership that we just fell into our lap last week, and we're trying to hone in the final details of that. So there might be some, last minute tweaks to the supply, the price, et cetera, based on this partnership, because, we initially planned to maybe cut the supply, but now we're thinking, hey, should we increase the supply and decrease the price? Sort of like tweaking through these different levels. But for anyone who wants to know more, I mean, the best place to go is the Discord. There is not an official website yet, so everything is happening in the Discord. All the information is there, and you can get an invite to the Discord just from crashpunks.com. It'll redirect you. And then there's also the Twitter account at Crashpunks. And so we're very excited for it. We have a lot of plans as well in the roadmap. So if you go into the Discord, you'll be able to see the roadmap where we plan to establish something called the Crashpunks DAO. We're working with a team in the Stacks community who's developing Discord bots so that we can authenticate people who are Crashpunks holders, and we can create a community proposal system and voting system to organize the DAO, and create exciting ways for people to collaborate with each other based on the traits of the different punks. We have a lot of kind of games in store and things like that. Grace is also going to be doing a custom merchandise line. So kind of like what you've seen with Bored Apes, where they do these limited edition merch drops people can buy into, at a discount. Grace is, again, a multi-talented designer. So having her create some cool looking, clothing like a cyberpunk track jacket or something, different accessories and merchandise based on the artwork, I think is going to be really cool. We have a live Q&A with Neil Stevenson, the author of Snow Crash, that all members can participate in who own a Crashpunks. Grace will also be doing a bonus NFT airdrop. So she's going to be making a companion NFT based on the book that will just be given for free to every Crashpunk holder, that will have, traits that tie it to your original Crashpunk. And then finally, we're looking to put together also a sort of community fund for the DAO that would be based on stacking. So like, we would stack a certain number of stacks, and then the rewards of that would be spent in the community fund, and also a virtual concert. So we might need to pare back some of these remote benefits because we are trying to make it more affordable, but we're going to have a vote in the Discord to decide. But the final thing that Grace was going to do was put together a virtual concert, where it's like a 20 to 30 minute, music multimedia experience on, Twitch or live stream that all members can participate in, that like features different people's profile pictures, and then turn that virtual concert into an NFT and fractionalize it among all the NFT holders.
Wow, it's really exciting. And yeah, as I say, I really think there's an incredible opportunity here because, well, you said it at the beginning, Trevor, when you said, there's this incredible, massive, large global community of Bitcoiners who obviously have a lot of capital in their Bitcoin. And they haven't really, especially if they're, a lot of the Bitcoiners have not really been given an opportunity to play in NFTs. Obviously, they can if they have some Ethereum, and a lot of them, of course, will. But I do think there's an incredible opportunity for a true Bitcoin NFT project. But how would that work then in terms of, because we have all these marketplaces, right? And OpenSea obviously been incredibly successful this year, but it's harder if you aren't able to get your NFTs onto OpenSea. So is there a vision to spin up like well, I don't know, a Bitcoin only NFT marketplace, or can they be made interoperable on other marketplaces? How do you see that working?
Yeah, so we already have several actually on Stacks, and actually it would be probably not that difficult for OpenSea to do it as well. I mean, OpenSea already does support Polygon and quite a few other chains.
They do, yeah.
They even support Clayton, which is a South Korean one. I'm not sure if that's for. Actually, I think that might not be its own. I don't know if it's its own blockchain. Or just they support the wrapped token for paying for things. But within Stacks, we have stxnft.com, which is a great one. We have stacksart.com, which is a great one. We have Residio, which is launching soon. We have This Is Number One, which was one of the first NFT marketplace on Stacks, which is more curated than a secondary market. They had actually the first big NFT on Stacks was Cara Delevingne NFT called Mine, and that was like a video that this actress and model made, and it went viral. And there's been like I'm not sure if it's confirmed, but there was a like 500K Stacks offer on this NFT recently. So the NFT market on Stacks is pretty, it's not mature, but it has all the tools that you need, and it's growing pretty rapidly.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Well, that will be, it'll be fascinating to see all this come to life on Bitcoin. So yeah, well, exciting stuff. Let's finish off this part of the podcast, Trevor. I said at the beginning, would love to just, you come from this kind of lean startup background. A lot of people, the first crypto startup that I worked at, that was kind of my introduction to lean startup thinking and agile and all that kind of stuff. How do you kind of think about all of that today? And is that's still an intrinsic part of startup culture, whether it's crypto or fintech or anything else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say this is an interesting thing actually, because I think that in some ways the crypto world is like leapfrogging the Web 2.0 world.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing a lot of people who are coming into the Web 3.0 world who maybe, weren't entrepreneurs or don't have the same knowledge from the Web 2.0 era, which is totally fine because it's a new paradigm and a new way of thinking. However, I've noticed that lean startup has not been at the top of the priority list or the front of the mind for a lot of more, less so in crypto than in my Web 2 experience. And it's been interesting to me. And I think part of it comes down to just what people have seen in terms of, money being so easy to come by, or what people perceive as money being so easy to come by in the crypto world, where you see a lot of success stories with people, kind of leading with a solution as opposed to leading with a customer problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. I'm laughing along because you're spot on.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. I mean, I think it is always a factor of like how new people are and sort of the success stories that are put up and what they look at. And if you look at like Bitcoin, for example, I mean, it kind of is this product that people perceive to almost have like an immaculate conception, where it just like arrived and it hasn't really changed much. But I think that people don't realize how many failures there were that came before Bitcoin, and how if you try to figure out who Satoshi is, right, we know like there's this group of cypherpunks and he's probably one of these people, and like every single one of these people has tried to launch their own version of Bitcoin for like a series of 20 years before Bitcoin actually succeeded, right? And even when Bitcoin launched, you know, there was lots of iteration and bugs and updates that have been made to it from the very early days. And so I think people tend to gloss over a lot of the details of how things actually come to life, and they tend to look at these things sort of like they're immaculately conceived. But the reality is, you know, Bitcoin is a result of 2 decades of research and professional experience and almost Darwinian testing of different alternatives and solutions until something finally stuck. And then the cryptos that we see being successful, for every one Uniswap or other success, there's 1,000 that tried the same thing or tried something similar and failed. And so I think lean startup is super important in the crypto world. And the founders of Stacks have been people who have been very humble about taking a lean startup approach from the beginning. I mean, you know, I recall there was a time when I think it was like 2016 when I was visiting the team before they did Stacks 2.0, and you know, they had raised a ton of funds, but they were, you know, very intellectually honest about the fact they hadn't quite nailed the product market fit with their you know, decentralized identity and decentralized storage. And you know, I was just very refreshed when I heard them kind of say that they didn't think that they had product market fit yet. And then, you know, going to Stacks 2.0, they still take that lean startup approach with them, and they're very honest about, hey, we think that stacking as a feature has product market fit, but here are the areas of our app that don't have product market fit and what we need to improve upon. And so for any of the companies that go through our accelerator, for example, we go very intensively with them on the lean startup. And I would say the biggest problem I see with all the companies that we've invested in, that I try to push them all the time on, is focus. You know, lack of focus, I think, is one of the top killers of startups, because they, especially for new entrepreneurs, you know, they haven't failed before. They don't know what it's like and how easy it is to succumb to our kind of cognitive biases of like, hey, why don't we just do everything? Why don't we just do everything? Why don't we just add, you know, if they have this feature, why don't we just add this feature? But that doesn't work long term, and that doesn't, you know, the most successful startups are not a Swiss Army knife. They're like a Phillips head screwdriver. They're 10x better at doing one thing, but they are an essential use case. Like a Phillips head screwdriver, every toolkit has it, but you can't do what a Phillips head screwdriver can do with any other tool. And so, you know, the entrepreneurs who take a Swiss Army knife approach, someone else is going to come along and do like, for every one thing that you do, there's going to be another team that comes along and does that feature 10 times better. And people aren't going to use that on your site. And the only way to survive as a startup is be 10x better at one thing. And then you have the potential to branch out. But, you know, lean startup is such an important thing. And I think a huge gap in the crypto market for entrepreneurs approaching things, and even the what other accelerators and investors offer, because I think there is a temptation to focus on the short term, to get your token out there and, you know, have essentially like a, you know, a quick flip, right? For some of the, so I think, you know, we've been really focusing on lean startup, and I think it's lacking in the crypto world compared to the Web 2.0 world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that context, Trevor. Let's go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off with the very famous crypto conversation hot take round.
In today's crypto market, the team at Brave New Coin are the sector's leading builders of custom crypto indices. BNC's powerful indexing engine draws on Brave New Coin's premium data to calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. BNC's custom indices help you to gain exposure to the crypto assets class and track your performance against the market without having to become a stock picker. Not sure what you need? a Brave New Coin consultant can help you assess your requirements. Contact BNC today to find out more.
All right, we're back and I'm with Trevor Owens. Trevor is the managing partner at the Stacks Accelerator. Stacks, of course, as we've heard, is enabling DeFi, NFTs, Web3, all the fun stuff directly, live and direct on Bitcoin. And Trevor, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Absolutely.
All right, just want, hot take, quick, snappy answers. Say whatever you want. Trevor, let's go. Question one is, where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
That's a hard question. I would say I believe Bitcoin is the best at decentralization and long-term viability, and I'm most bullish on building on top of Bitcoin. However, I don't have anything against experiments, people trying other things. I encourage lots of innovation, experimentation in all areas.
Great. Couldn't have said it better myself. Very much agree, Trevor. What would you say then is your firmest conviction, crypto opinion?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that maybe this isn't like a controversial thing, but I think that we've hit the watershed moment. Everything is moving to crypto in the future. It's inevitable. I mean, it's not going to, in some ways, it's going to disrupt completely the whole Web 2.0 paradigm, but in other ways, it's also just a layer on top of everything that's been done in Web 2.0.
Yeah, it's just starting to feel like the chasm has actually been crossed at this time. You can just look around and see stuff is starting to happen. Even so, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years. You know this all too well coming from Lean Startup, but underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So whatever you like, but maybe let's go with Bitcoin. What does it look like in 10 years' time, Trevor?
Oh man, I think that the vision for Stacks is to be like an invisible smart contract layer.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to see with Bitcoin is that as soon as wallets start adding, Stacks functionality, you'll be able to access an entire ecosystem of Web3 smart contracts, DeFi, NFTs, without even knowing that Stacks exists. And so I think that's going to happen probably in the 10 years for sure, 5 years probably for sure, 3 to 4, medium likelihood, and then, 2 years is what I would hope to see.
So what you're saying, Trevor, is it's still early, right?
Oh, super early for Stacks, yeah.
Well, William Gibson famously said that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Can you think of an example then, Trevor, of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Yeah, I would say definitely for me, that's crypto. I mean, there's so many people who, we're living in an unprecedented time of uncertainty, right? Like with COVID, with global warming, with authoritarianism, on the rise, and AI being an enabler of authoritarianism, and things like Russia and other countries creating their own kind of great firewall approach to the internet. We're living in this very unprecedented time of uncertainty, and I think that Bitcoin, in a way, is in crypto, the idea of decentralizing technology at a fundamental level is the best thing that could have happened to us, because even with censorship and social media and Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg taking over the metaverse, good luck to him. I really feel like that crypto can be the genesis of so many solutions for us, and so that's my hope for crypto and for Bitcoin, is that it can usher in a world where, it's more meritocratic, it's more decentralized, and we can solve a lot of these problems from the root cause of what's causing these things, instead of, trying to fix the symptoms.
Yeah, well, look, on a similar note, Trevor, let's zoom out even more. Time to get weird. What do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
It's so hard to say, but I fundamentally believe that it will be a utopia. I mean, it's so hard to say though. I mean but I fundamentally believe that we're going to get through this. I believe that we will become, as Elon Musk says, an interplanetary species. I believe that, life extension, that immortality will be possible for maybe not our generation, but maybe the next one, which is kind of sad to think about, that we might be the last generation before this amazing technology breakthrough. But it's not going to come without work. It's not going to come without everybody participating and trying to bring about that utopian or better future. Because, if you look at the Fermi paradox, for example, the odds are that there should be other, intelligent species contacting us here on Earth, just based on the numbers of how many solar systems there are and how old the universe is. But we could be the only one, and that may be because so many other species, intelligent species that came before us, have self-destructed themselves. So that's what I always think about, that the odds in some ways are against us maybe, but we have to fight to make it happen, and we can make it happen.
Yeah, and the reason it's that idea that there must be the great filter, right? That if a civilization gets to a certain point of technological advancement, there must be something that goes wrong, because otherwise we'd see all these intergalactic civilizations everywhere. But no, presumably they must have got stopped in their tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that really brings us to the closing question, Trevor, which is, what is your favorite science fiction, a book, film, show, or universe?
I mean, I would have to say Snow Crash, just because.
Would have been disappointed if you didn't, Trevor. Keep going.
I mean, it's just so prescient in terms of, predicting the metaverse, and it is kind of the original, one of the original cyberpunk, right, genre sources. And so I just think it's an incredible book. It's very prescient. It tells us a lot about. It's incredible in terms of how it predicted so many things, that I think it's a great source of inspiration, and just an incredible book and a great read.
And you said before that there was going to be some kind of a Q&A with Neil Stephenson with through the Crashpunks ecosystem. So how does that work? And so is Neil's aware of Crashpunks, and yeah, what does he think? Because he's kind of, he's quite, I think he's being careful. I might have this wrong, but I think he kind of distanced himself. Well, I think he has come out and very much distanced himself, unsurprisingly, from the Facebook brand name, right? Yeah,
totally. So, I mean, we've been speaking with Neil's, agent and his publisher and things like that, but we haven't spoken to him directly yet. So I'm excited to hear or see what he thinks. I think that in the live Q&A, it'll be interesting when we do like a Zoom call and he sees all of the Crashpunks avatars and things like that on the live stream. Will be fun. So yeah, TBD. We've been just communicating with his team. He has a new book coming out actually called Termination Shock. Yeah. So we bought a bunch of those books, and we'll be hosting him for a live Q&A. So it'll be interesting to hear what he sees, hear what he thinks when it's live.
Awesome. Can't wait. All right. Well, hey, this has been a good podcast, Trevor. Have very much enjoyed talking to you. Nothing else to say really, except to hand the metaphorical microphone back to you. I mean, we kind of covered the Stacks Accelerator, but we covered everything really. But tell people where they should go if they want to learn more about Stacks and how they can get accelerated, Crashpunks, all that good stuff, where they can find you on Twitter. Go for gold.
Yeah, so my Twitter is @TO, and we are opening the applications for the next cohort of the Accelerator. So if you go to stacks.ac, you can read more about our program. We make 50K investments in every company. at no valuation cap. We don't take a fixed equity percentage. So it's like the best deal you can get from an accelerator. We have additional funding from our foundation, and you get to join a community of like amazing mentors, leaders, and awesome entrepreneurs. And we have just an amazing community. You know, even though it's a global program, you can attend from anywhere in the world. You know, it's very tight knit, and people really support each other, which is one of the things I think most attracted to about the Stacks ecosystem. Is when I decided to do this. You know, if you look at some of the other ecosystems, I'm not going to name names, but some of the top, you know, tokens on the market cap, you know, they when there's a lot of money on the table, sometimes people don't collaborate. They sort of, you know, try to go for themselves, right? And so the Stacks ecosystem is incredibly professional, incredibly collaborative, and you know, synergistic. Everybody supports each other, and that's hard to find. And I wouldn't be doing this accelerator if I didn't see that from the founders and the leaders. Like Andy, you said you've had Brittany Laughlin and Manib on the show, who, you know, they exemplify this tremendously about their spirit of collaboration. And so I would love everyone, if you're working on something exciting, if you are, you know, going to build something, you're probably looking at Ethereum or Solana or other chains, check out Stacks. Stacks can offer you something incredible in terms of its connection to Bitcoin, the user base, the capital base. If you believe in Bitcoin, you believe in decentralization, and are hesitant about proof of stake and some of the implications it might have, you know, come to Stacks, come talk to us. Our application is live. And also check out Crashpunks. We'll be launching next month, and going to also be a great community for people who love sci-fi, people who love Snow Crash, Bitcoin, and it's just going to be a cool piece of art.
Couldn't agree more. Awesome. Thank you very much, Trevor. All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be here.
All right, there you go. That was Trevor from the Stacks Accelerator, and yeah, I think we are going to do that special Snow Crash Crashpunks podcast with Grace. So we're going to hook that up. Thanks to Trevor, thanks to Eli Herf. Yeah, and the Crashpunks team will get it happening, because I think, as I said, you know, it just couldn't be more relevant to my interests. Bitcoin, NFTs, Snow Crash, what's not to like? So if that sounds like you, do look it up. You can find the Discord just by going to crashpunks.com, I think, and they're on Twitter as well. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for today. Thanks for listening, team. Don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. Yeah, if you want to get at me, you can always drop me an email, andy@bravenewcoin.com. All right, thanks everyone. Bye for now. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave the New Coin.